Welcome to the L&D Go Beyond Podcast. Today we have Phil Reddall with us. Phil is the head of learning and capability systems at Thames Water, UK. He's passionate about efficiency, effectiveness, and impact of people HR services, especially in learning. In his own words, functional leadership, change, and innovation is often at the heart of what he does. He has been the chair of board of directors of the e-learning network and has held learning innovation roles at AkzoNobel and Knowledge Pool in his earlier stints. So today we'll be discussing innovation in L&D with Phil. Phil, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Amit. Lovely to be here.
Brilliant. Before we get started, Phil, why don't you share a little bit about your journey and what excites you today?
Yeah, sure. I'm always mindful to make this as sharp as possible. So I've had quite a few different roles in the past. Like many of us, I found my way to learning through a natural sort of affinity for helping people to be better at their jobs. In a past life, I used to run managed sort of hospitality venues, and I used to help my team be really great at customer mystery customer shops. And I got asked, well, why are your team always doing so well at these mystery shops, customer service metrics? And I said, well, I don't really know. I think it's just because how I explain what they do and how it impacts our customer to them and help them understand what they need to do to be better. And from that, many of the people listening to this podcast will sort of will see a familiarity with the way their careers have gone, because I realized that actually I quite enjoy this, understanding what the business is trying to do and how people contribute to that. And that was a clear step towards learning. And from there, I've done all sorts. So from e-learning design, large scale live event design. I've done, like you said, a couple of learning innovation roles, strategic learning consultancy for lots of different companies when I was working with the Capita and Knowledge Pool, through John Lewis Partnership and my role there, looking after a large part of the learning proposition, all the way through to today, where at Thames Water I'm responsible for all of the learning operation that supports our customer-facing employees and our corporate functions, along with the system and platforms that support capability across performance, development, talent. So a really broad church now.
Yeah.
So that in a nutshell, that's me.
Fantastic. Very exciting. I mean, the kind of different roles that you've had, and as you said, you landed in L&D mostly because of the affinity of what you were doing in terms of supporting your team with those mystery customer shopping experiences that people had.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's always been a bit of a plan. So I've always sort of thought, well, the next thing is probably more like this and less like this. So I've definitely steered my journey through the different elements of learning, but at the same time, never known more than the next step. I'm not one of these people that has a plan that, 10 years time, I'm going to take over the world. I sort of found my way and built that experience. Yeah.
I know what you mean. Yeah, it's very difficult to really think of too many steps down the line. Yeah,
exactly.
And what excites you today, in all of these roles and what you're doing today?
I think what excites me most, and it's, sometimes I think I've got quite an unusual perspective, and then sometimes I think I've got quite a shared perspective with a lot of my sort of fellow L&D professionals out there. But I think what excites me most is that still there's such a big opportunity to make a difference. And we may talk about it a bit more later on, but I'm a really strong believer that today's business environment is sort of defined by change. So every business I've worked in over the last, let's say, 10 years, the pace of change, each time I've moved into a new business, the speed of change is increasing. And I realized that it's increasing in the business I've left, and it's increasing in the business I've come to. And it's common right across industry and probably across the world. And that pace of change gives us an amazing opportunity as the people responsible for driving business performance through people. Because if the business is digitizing, the world is digitizing, and that's one type of change. Okay, and there are many types of change, but there are lots of themes. But digitization, centralization, disintermediation, lots of different sort of strategic themes driving businesses to be different, and they're doing it faster and faster. The one place where we can innovate most successfully, and the one place where we can really drive value, is in human-only traits. So the opportunity we have, and I feel I have right now, is to really make a difference innovating in people. So people's skills, people's capability, either how they develop those skills or what those skills are. Both of those are opportunities for us. And more than ever, human capability is so important at executive level, or it should be, because it's the place where you can innovate the most and where we have the most to gain in this context of change and digitization. So yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if that's what you were expecting. I haven't given you a learning tool or product that excites me most, but I think it's the opportunity that excites me most.
To be honest, that's probably a more common response that I'm getting when I'm talking to people.
Okay.
Is the opportunity to make a difference. Of course, the reason with which you were looking at it, and it makes perfect sense, that the speed of change is higher and change is everywhere. And what you are also saying is human capability becomes even more important now. And along with all of that change that is coming or happening, you need to evolve the skills of your team faster than ever.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, it gives us a headache as well. I mean, it's a great opportunity, but it's complicated. It's hard to prioritize. You know, people listening to this will have their own versions of why the speed of this change is a challenge. I could list them, but I won't. But you know, no opportunity comes without that challenge. So it's two sides to it for sure.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Phil. So I mean, if we get started with some of the questions I had for you under this topic today, how have you seen innovation in L&D evolve over the last decade or so? How has it looked like? What's your takeaway from looking at innovation from various perspectives that you have had over the last decade or so?
Yeah, well, so obviously I've had a little think about this, and I think it really depends on your perspective, because I started thinking, what innovation have I seen? And I think in some organizations, it might be innovation in the user experience or the user interface of how people are accessing learning and whether they're making it easy. And some it's the 70-20-10 culture shift. In some, it's design thinking. In some, it's about tackling knowledge retention or democratization of learning and platforms. But actually, I think one thing seems to me to be universal, and that's the pressure on business in terms of time to learn and the investment available. There seems to be less time because we're so busy, and the pace of change is increasing, and investment in learning is different everywhere, but definitely businesses are feeling downward pressure on people and spend budgets. So if I think about the most noticeable sort of innovation in L&D in the last decade, if I really push myself, because I suppose what I would say is that innovation is context specific. And so, it is innovative if it is new and brings benefit where you are. So that's why everybody can have a different version of what innovation looks like. But if I really had to push myself, and I did, because I thought you might if I didn't, if I really had to push myself, then I think learning analytics and our ability to analyze data related to learning, whether that's the services and systems that are available out there on the market, or whether it's individual teams focusing on their learning analytics and how they make decisions based on that data. I think that's one of the most noticeable shifts over the last 10 years. But then you've already mentioned the other one. So our own team, and I put mindset before skills. So it is the skills of the team, but also our mindset has been a huge shift over the last 10 years. Not forgetting, of course, that there are, some organizations, there might be people listening to this, 10 years ago, they sort of first picked up digital learning, for example. There will also be organizations who picked it up properly for the first time last year. So I know that not everybody's in the same place. And the journey, for example, therefore, of L&D teams' skills is different in different places. But as a theme, that learning analytics and that L&D team mindset and skills are the biggest areas of change in my mind.
Very interesting. Of course, we've been now hearing this for a long time, data becoming the commodity to chase in any organization. And yes, if L&D is beginning to use it in a meaningful manner, probably that is the biggest innovation that we would have seen in the last decade. Excellent. In general, I mean, this is probably taking you a few years back, and also see because of your exposure to various organizations, both in your roles at Learning Pool as well as what you did at eLearning Network. In general, do you find the L&D community has been innovative, or they're kind of lagging mostly, and it's only in the last few years where it has become more of an imperative that they are beginning to innovate a little more?
It's a really tough question, because I suppose I should caveat that, my response.
That's fine, but what's your
opinion? No.
Yeah.
I do have a view. So I guess my caveat is that there is no judgment in whether or not, from me at least, in whether or not learning folk are innovative, because again, it is context sensitive, but also I think there's a real challenge sometimes in learning and development, because whilst we can hold ourselves back from being innovative because we enjoy what we do, or we have a particular view in our minds of what learning should be, also our customers are part of the sort of ecosystem that can make it really hard to innovate in learning, because they have preconceived ideas of what they want and need. And by that, I suppose I mean the learning culture in any given organization. It manifests itself sometimes for learning teams that I've come across, either through the e-learning network that I've been working with, or in the companies that I've been working in. We will all have had our version of when a stakeholder came to us and said, I need a 2-hour e-learning package on X, or I need a training course on Y. That's an example of the culture within the business setting an expectation for us that makes it much harder to push and be innovative. So when I come back to your question, and it's not the only one, we do it to ourselves. I have done it to myself. So I'm not blaming our internal customers. I'm just trying to sort of build a picture of the environment for innovation within learning. I think it's not always an open door for a number of reasons. And so in answer to the question, do I think we're, in general, innovative? I think yes, but not universally. There are, like anywhere, I suppose, there are pockets of early adopters who are probably too innovative. So innovative that the things they try and introduce are too big a leap, and it doesn't land. So they're pushing too hard. And then there are pockets where either knowingly or unknowingly we hold ourselves back. And so I think the most important thing is to always be looking for the opportunity, and in my head, innovation has to have a purpose. Its purpose is to, in my mind, help to drive our service and our products to be more efficient or more effective in the context of whatever the business is dealing with. And if we're always looking for that, then we'll be at least facing into innovation and change for our profession.
Yeah, I can clearly see, of course, there have been challenges in how L&D has been structured over the years. And like you said, there may be differences in context in different organizations. But if I were to, bring back the earlier argument that you were putting forth, which was around the pace of change has increased, and hence human capability is probably a bigger focus area even for business stakeholders.
Mm-hmm.
Budgets are probably not as easily available, or maybe there is higher accountability that is being expected. Is that then going to create an environment for even increased speed of innovation in most organizations? So essentially there is pressure.
Yeah. Do I think that the context I defined will help drive innovation? It can, but I think we as a profession will need to push that and make that argument, because even in businesses that are seeing all that change, and where I would argue, therefore, that human capability is an area where we really must focus to achieve our goals, and we must innovate and we must keep pushing. It doesn't necessarily follow that an organization so leadership teams across organizations, and I don't just mean executive level, I mean sort of generally leadership, let's call them communities, they don't necessarily make that leap themselves, because as has happened, and again, no judgment here, because I think it's part human nature and part needed of us. Operations within businesses focus on tasks.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to go, well, the task is to change the way we do our billing, for example. And we need a whole new system, it'll be more efficient, it'll transform the way we work. That's our change. It's very easy to miss the human innovation and skills and capabilities that would help deliver that, and to miss what I would argue is at least half of the lever to bring about that change, because the system is nothing without the people that use it, as an example. So, when you say, does the context drive innovation? That's my words. I know it's not exactly what you said, Amit. I think it presents the opportunity and the chance. It doesn't always mean the door's open.
Yeah, so we'll have to still reach out and grab those opportunities and possibly turn them into something which is more favorable. But I hate, maybe the environment is more suitable. Of course, technology has helped over the years, so you have various things available, and
and I see. Well, if we go to the sort of like the technical learning stuff level, so our products and services that we provide either to our external customers or to our internal learners, the opportunity to innovate in how we do what we do is bigger than it's ever been, because you're right, we do have more tools, more collaboration platforms, sometimes too many. We've got two different ways to do virtual classrooms in our business.
Wow.
So and not necessarily by design, or that evolved that way, and that's a great, so that's just an example, I suppose, of how, yes, you're right, the tools and technology, it's not always technology that is the tool, but the tools and technology that allow us to innovate how we deliver learning experiences, I would 100% agree. It's never been easier from a technical point of view to build those learning experiences. Having them land in the business is still as big a challenge as it has ever been.
Yeah, I think so. My takeaway from that is we are in a good spot. We need to see if we can make the most of it. Technology is available. Pressure, if we consider it positively, it's actually driving us in the right direction.
Yeah. Essentially, yeah. If you look around yourself, there are opportunities to innovate, technically, to build different learning experiences, whether that's online or in the classroom or a true blend. Learning opportunities as well as experiences, I should add. And we have a context whereby the business case for focusing on human capability has never been stronger if we go out there and make that case. So yeah, now you make me think I'm even more excited about the opportunities to make a difference. Yeah.
I mean, we keep talking to some of the research bodies as well, being part of their network, and yes, that's what we hear from them. I think the opportunity is out there. It's for companies to really leverage that. Yeah. Excellent. The next, I wanted to check with you, what do you think, and maybe it ties into something that you said earlier, but what do you think is the real benefit that an organization would get if their L&D is more innovative? You did mention it helps efficiency and effectiveness. Maybe you can improve that on a regular basis or a continuous basis, but maybe that's just one sentence. I'm sure you have more detailed thoughts on that.
Yeah. Try not to give you too many sentences. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think why it matters is so that we can make a difference to the business. And I like to use the efficiency and effectiveness language. So, and because efficiency can mean a number of things: to do it faster, do it for less, make it easier. It can mean all three of those things or just one of those things, just off the top of my head. And effectiveness, of course, is, does it drive the outcome that we need? So is the behavior that we're looking to change, or the knowledge we're looking to build, or whatever it may be, does that happen? So that's kind of a given in our world. That anything we do should do one of those two things or both, or at least not damage the other. If you do something faster but you make it less effective, you probably shouldn't have bothered. But if you do it faster and keep it as effective as it was, that's an improvement. That's great. I guess why it's important. Nothing stands still. That's a bit of a trite answer, but I think it's valid. I think on top of that, it's about contributing to that business case that I was talking about. So every business I have worked in the last 6-7 years has had a transformation agenda, and at the heart of that transformation agenda, or they'll call it that or something else, human capability has been at the heart of it. So to be able to support that, you need to be able to innovate the way you do what you do. And I guess a really pertinent example is of like a more tactical reason to be able to innovate is the experience probably everyone's been through who's watching this podcast over the last 18 months to 2 years, because you never know when something is going to come along that's going to force you to innovate. It's not a choice. It's an imperative. I was working at the John Lewis Partnerships, the Waitrose and John Lewis, when COVID started, and overnight all the things that we were doing face to face stopped. It's been borne out over the last 2 years that if you were already curious, it really helps when it comes time to change, and transform fast, when forced by an external, factor. I think for a number of reasons, innovation and innovation mindset is really important.
Absolutely, and I know most of us have been forced into innovating in L&D and many other business processes because of the COVID.
Yeah, it's not just us. Yeah.
Uh, uh, I had a related question on this because so just last week or the week before, I was talking to Guy Wallace, and he is a performance consultant. He spent about 40 years doing this, and I was asking him, do you see the same challenges in L&D? And he says, yeah, pretty much the same, right?
Over 40 years.
Over 40 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, his main challenges that he listed out was we still kind of focusing on topics instead of tasks. We are measuring the wrong things. We're not going for performance, etc. So what, and I'm just trying to bring that to our discussion today, which is maybe innovation you can look at. We are not able to achieve certain goals, so we are continuously trying to innovate our methods and tools and technology, but we are still not there in many cases. So it could be a gap that we are trying to fill, or it could be that there is something new that has come out, and let's see how we can best leverage to further strengthen what we are already doing. So think of it this way, that learning in the moment of need would not have been possible 20 years ago or 30 years ago when technology wasn't so evolved.
Yeah. So what is the question? What's my view on whether or not those things are innovative, or
so
if you just pause?
Yeah.
Go on.
So what I was looking at was, has the innovation that most of it that you have been seeing, is it really still trying to get us to a decent level of, outcomes that L&D should be giving, or are we innovating marginally over and above what we are actually successfully doing? So is it a gap which is negative, if I can put it that way, or is it something that we are trying to improve on? Yeah.
I'm totally with you, Amit. So I think it's probably the latter. So I think you just said to me a minute ago, it's made it possible to learn in the flow of work because of technology recently. And by way of answer, I might say to you, I'm not sure I agree. I think it's always been possible to learn in the flow of work. There has been technology and platforms that have given us a different way to do that from others, and context-sensitive knowledge and learning right next to a task that we're performing in a system, for example. That's a new way of learning at work. But probably 50, 60 years ago, there were apprentices learning through work and learning in a different way. So I think it is very easy to accidentally be innovating for innovation's sake, changing the way we do something, and lose sight of, well, why am I innovating? To your point, am I achieving my outcomes? Because if you're achieving the outcomes the business needs, if you are delivering what's required, measuring the right things, targeting the right skills, prioritizing in the right way, and delivering outcomes, then the imperative to innovate, there is still need to innovate, because we need to match the expectations of our learners. We need to match the working environment. We need to make the most of and consider, I guess, new technologies that come along. But I do think it's really important to use, I'll use, rather than the word learning technology, I'll say new learning mechanisms, because it's not always just technology. There is a need to be cautious with that, and only use it when it really helps you achieve your outcome better. Because if you only do one thing, then achieving what the business needs and showing you've done that is the one thing. then you can build on, well, can I make it easier for my learners? Can I make it faster for my learners? Can I save the business time? And you only know whether those are the things worth doing. And those outcomes give you the innovative approaches to learning experience and learning opportunities that you might prioritize. Because there's a big list, right? There's a big list of things you could do. So knowing what the business needs you to do, well, first and foremost, it needs you to give it the skills it needs to do its job. Once you've done that, if you can do it quicker and that business is looking for you to do it quicker, that's a great innovation. If you can do it for less money, then that's a great thing, especially if the business needs you to be doing that. And I'd say that's probably always the case. But there are sometimes really clear drivers in parts of the business that say, well, we've moved all of our people. So a great example is we've moved all of our contact center agents home. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, there's a really clear need to innovate. But we still need to make sure that we have contact center agents that deliver a level of service for our customers that we're happy with and that pick up the phone when a customer calls. So that always has to come first. So I think I'm probably using too many words to agree with you, Amit, which is you can innovate too much, and innovation shouldn't become the thing you are doing. The thing you should be doing is supporting the business.
The way I was trying to understand that was outcomes is what you are really responsible for. And if you are achieving those with all the latest technology and whatever is available to you, you could possibly bring in further efficiency, whether it is time or cost, but the focus from outcomes can't go away.
Yes, that's true. And you could probably achieve those outcomes in many cases with less innovative technology, less innovative learning practices than you might think. Yeah. I'm not saying they're not important, because they are important. But if you just say, right, it's great, we've got a huge long list, we've got peer-to-peer learning, tick, we've enabled it. We've got multiple types of asynchronous e-learning available. We've got a huge catalogue of soft skills. We've got we've got mobile learning, we've got this, we've got that. If you've got all of that, but you're not achieving the outcomes, that's not the place you should be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's precisely what maybe you hinted at earlier, which is aligning it with what is your requirement, what is the business requirement. And if I may add, not getting lost in the shiny object challenge, bringing it works for you.
Yeah. Shiny toys are only valuable if they create an improvement toward the outcomes that you're aiming for. True. So you're right, not getting distracted by the shiny toys, and we're our own worst enemies. I think probably most industries are the same, but we're our own worst enemies. I go along to learning technologies, which of course isn't just learning technology. Each year when it's on, and I get really excited about all the new things. The critical thing is to work out which ones are right for the business I'm in at that time, if any. And then really mindfully utilize those, really target that to make a difference for the business.
Correct. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have anything on your mind which you think is a upcoming promising innovation on the horizon? You may have already touched on it briefly, but anything that excites you in the next 1, 2, 3 years, this is what is something really innovative for the L&D space that can happen, of course, with a caveat that it could be different for different contexts and different organizations.
Yeah, I'm going to, you're probably not going to be surprised if I say, not really. There aren't any that I think matter. It's how we use what's already here in an innovative way that will make the difference. And we sort of talked about that a little bit already.
Yeah.
If you really pushed me, then I think the services and products that make it easier for us as professionals to analyze, gain insight from our data and make decisions, I think that's the thing that probably is one of the themes over the horizon. And why is it over the horizon? You know, I won't list the providers, but there are a small number of providers in the UK at least, and they'll be similar in other markets, I'm sure, who have products to make that easier. I recently judged the Learning Technologies Awards. In fact, we're in the middle of judging. And our category I'm judging is quite a new category, looking at how organizations have utilized data and analytics to drive decisions that either deliver a business impact or deliver an improvement to the learning experience. So, I do really think that, if you made me pick one thing, and I sort of made myself pick one thing, those products and services that make it easier, because it's not easy if you're not if you've not got a clear affinity with data and analytics, if you're not a data scientist, it's not always easy to start analyzing data well, and that's part of the wider skills shift. So those tools and systems that make it easier for us as professionals to do that, so that we could adapt content within a large induction, for example, based on progress in the first few weeks of that induction, to really personalize the experience, that's really exciting. Or data that helps us prioritize and be better at prioritizing which skills we focus on, where we spend our budgets. Products and services that help with that and help more of us to do that in either way. And they're just two examples. That probably for me is the one thing that I'd call out as a more universally exciting thing. Now, again, you don't necessarily need those products or services. You can do it yourself. But that would excite me, because whether or not you need, because we all need some sort of learning technology support these days in our businesses, but whether or not you've got mobile or social or recommended learning through algorithms and those sorts of things, that's a choice that you make for your business. But actually it's much more universal that we can all drive value from really analyzing what we see in our data. So that would probably be the one that I'd pick out.
Yeah, the way I see data part, of course, and you listed it. One is, of course, personalization or adaptive journeys for individuals, and the second is probably more at a overview level to make it more focused decision making for L&D itself based on the aggregate data that you get, which skills, where to focus. I think you touched on both of those. What I wanted to understand, and if that came out in your judging process, what is driving it? Is it XAPI, which is being used in some of these, learning analytics solutions that you were able to judge?
So sometimes, so sometimes it was XAPI, supported by one or two of those suppliers that I've seen across the UK, but there will be versions of that. Other versions are available, kind of thing. But also sometimes it was it was just good data analytics, understanding and using data analysis tools to really understand across cohorts of learners where there were strengths, where there were weaknesses, real time, and augmenting the learning journey real time. Literally providing, in the solutions architecture. So not just, in an e-learning space, providing up this bit of this module and that bit of that knowledge, because that's where you're weak, and sort of personalizing that way, but in a sort of real-time personalization of actually, this, for example, this leadership program, there are, let's say, I'm sort of making this up, but sort of 30 areas of capability. And as you start providing summative assessments, getting feedback, that all gets pulled into the system. The end of your learning was never known until you started, because the data and what you do as you get started and you learn and you provide feedback and you submit information, it tailors the end of your learning journey entirely for you, even with the face-to-face elements of the training that might be supported. And I've only seen that a couple of times. And actually, one of the times that I saw it, it was quite a manual exercise, but they used data science to do it. And I find that really exciting. It's not that it's not been done before. I'm pretty sure that, similar things have been done in education, and there will be people who have been doing it for a while, but at scale, I think the tools that are starting to be available will make it more accessible for more of us to try that sort of thing. So not only is it the personalization of anytime, anywhere digital content, but it is a truly personalized, data-driven engine that drives your development. Ultimately, eventually, and I'm getting a little bit blue sky, your whole development plan, not just a particular course or program or 1 year journey. It could be your whole, it could be the way we focus on development. But there I'm probably getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, but that's exactly what I wanted to get from you in this section. What's more exciting in future? But yeah, I think we're seeing some signs of data pushing learning analytics and tools available for that to do it much better now, which can not just deliver a great experience, but also kind of help you plan, strategize for the future based on data.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose the one thing I would sort of share on this topic, sort of as a way of sort of closing that bit, is you mentioned earlier on that one of the last people you spoke to, they've been in the business 40 years, and a lot of the themes and challenges are the same. I guess in that vein, you can't replace, when it comes to learning, great development conversations and a development mindset. So being clear on why you're learning and what you're learning as an individual and the individual's responsibility, I don't think that's ever going to go anywhere. We can make it easier for people to find the learning that's relevant for them. But I still think there needs to be an element of responsibility to make sure that people are thinking, well, what do I want to achieve? What do I need to do in my role? What are my objectives? Where do I want to go in the future? And from all of that, a great development plan. I think we still need to keep some responsibility in the human, the learner, for working their way through that with support. So I just wanted to call that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Ultimately, learning is a human process.
Yeah.
We will have to do it. And it is not something. So I like this phrase from Michael Allen, where he says, you cannot learn someone. You can teach someone, but you cannot learn someone. They have to do it for themselves. You can create an environment. You can, do the right things. You can give them personalization and journey and everything. Still, they have to go through it to do it.
Yes. Yeah. And of course, therefore, motivation matters. Motivation to learn, and therefore, if you haven't worked out why you're learning, we're going to struggle, all of us. So 100% agree with that one.
Yeah. Okay. Last thing I wanted to check with you was, what would your advice be for people who have been thinking, maybe they are starting a little fresh, maybe 2-3 years into doing, let's say digital has been a transformation for them, or a challenge that they are facing, and now they're getting into e-learning and various modes of learning. How can they be setting out an innovation agenda? What can they do to become more innovative? Is there a path they can follow?
Yes, there absolutely is. And you sent me this question beforehand, and I wanted to I feel really genuinely, I've been chair of the ELN. I want to play my part in helping the industry, I guess, to think differently and demystify the art of the possible. So I've thought really hard about this, and I think it's two things. And you can do both separately, but I think they're stronger together. So number one is basically a curiosity and an open mind. And what do I mean by that? I guess what it says on the tin, but first and foremost, get out there and learn from other people. Understand what other people are doing. I can't tell you how valuable the experiences I have had in helping to organize small learning conferences, or going out to the trade shows and listening to other people talk in free conference sessions about what they're doing and why they're doing it. And sometimes there's a sales pitch in there, but there's also learning. Yeah. There's also experiencing what other people are doing. So find your source of inspiration and information, and it can be a lot of different places. You can do a bit of it and then ease off a bit and then do a bit more, but get out there and learn from other people. I've shared a few examples of how you can do that. If you're listening to this, whether or not you've learned anything from me today, you are doing that. So that's one example. And the other is a bit more practical, Amit, which is, and I'm probably going to do the model a disservice, but essentially you can run yourself an innovation funnel. It sounds snazzy, or maybe it doesn't, but I think it sounds snazzy, but it's not that complicated. So I've done this before in businesses I've worked in, and an innovation funnel is essentially a mechanism for driving the conversation around innovation and for highlighting the right innovations. So essentially what you do, your team, whether it's a team of designers, a learning leadership team, a business leadership team, even, because you can take the learning bit off and you can still have an innovation funnel. Work out, when you sit down and talk about your challenges and write down a list of your challenges, and then agree which ones are common, which ones do you share. Then focus on opportunities to overcome those challenges. And in the learning space, that could be how we do what we do, or what we cover. But often it'll be how we do what we do. So learning experience and opportunity, and try some of those things. Have a little pilot over here. Team A, let's try and redesign this program to deal with the travel budget problem that we've got, or right now it's not a travel budget problem, it's a travel problem. So maybe we've done that one, but or maybe we've got a bit of an inclusion challenge in the business and an accessibility challenge. Maybe our workforce has shifted slightly and people are finding it harder to access our courses. Okay, well, let's innovate and brainstorm. We know that's a shared common problem, but let's try it over here in this small pocket, and then all get back together, talk about what worked. And when we have a solution that works on that prioritized common problem, then we can expand it across the whole team. So at a really high level, an innovation funnel is just that. But start from a point of, what are our challenges? And don't make them up. Don't pretend that your challenge is mobile learning because you want to have a mobile learning project. Be really clear on what your customers' challenges are when it comes to learning. Whether that's your customer who's telling you what learning they need as a business function, or the individual learner. Be really clear on those challenges and innovate in that space. Come up with ideas, work on it as a team, and then launch the ones that make the biggest difference. That's a really practical way of driving conversations about options in innovation. It takes time. So even if you don't have, at any given point, the capacity to do that, the first one of being curious, open-minded, learn from others, and build ideas and innovation into new work, you can do that as part of your day-to-day job. So those two things would be my recommendation.
Fantastic. And if I were to, link it to, something which obviously the L&D wants to do most of the times, but not everybody is capable of doing, or maybe they're not in a position to do, is performance consulting. And you've
Yeah.
done you've done a bit of that. So do you see there is an overlap with performance consulting, or between performance consulting and innovation? And why I'm asking this is because when you said you have this innovation funnel and you have all of these common challenges, which obviously you are doing with different business counterparts, and that is where you are actually trying to do a bit of performance consulting, and you are then aligning your innovation with whatever you may be doing on the performance side.
Yeah, so I hadn't actually meant that, but you can do it both ways. So I was talking about, you could have a design team, and as long as they understand the challenges that are going on in the business, which is, and I mean not what subject matter is needed, but in terms of the challenges around, I don't know, the time people have to learn, or where people are being asked to work, and those sorts of sort of challenges. And you can do it in either way. So you could run an innovation funnel that's entirely focused on how we design the learning we want to design. And to your point, you would need a link into what's going on in the business through whatever your business partnering model is in your company. So in some companies, that's HR business partners. In some companies, that's learning and development business partners. In a few companies, they're called performance consultants. But most of those roles do some form, or I believe should do some form of performance consultancy. But you're right, you could align the innovation funnel to the actual performance consulting conversation, and have it in that forum, if you like. But I think then you'd be including not just how learning is supported in a business, but what that learning needs to be. And then you're kind of talking about an approach to business planning, strategic workforce planning, operational workforce planning, and understanding the change in the business, the impact on people, where that is likely then to be either recruitment, development, outsourcing to get more resource to solve that challenge, which is a more cyclical, long-term planning approach. So you can do it in either place. And I guess now you're making me think, if you've got both of those teams in your business, in most businesses you do, then you probably should do it in both places at once, if you can. Because then you're innovating not just how you do it, but the content itself, and getting the right skills and knowledge. But I guess I'm a realist. Being really frank, it would be good to do just one of those if you can't do both for some reason, because both will bring you an outcome, a benefit. Probably the performance consulting first, because if you're not really clear on what the business needs and you're not helping the business understand what its challenges are, you might end up developing really innovative learning for the wrong thing.
Yeah. Excellent. I can't let you go before I ask. You talked about curiosity and open mind and finding inspiration, and you also talked about judging a lot of new entries at the Learning Technology Awards. Are there specific places where people can find inspiration? Of course, LinkedIn is one area where people can just go and connect with people.
Yeah.
I see, YouTube channel of Learning Technologies is pretty rich. If people want to see that, there are lots of great sessions over there. But is there any other place that you would like people to go to find any inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess the first thing I'd say is you'll probably know when you found it, because it'll be sharing things with you that are new. But that's a bit vague. So, for me, the e-learning network was a great place because they judge, in the UK at least. There are versions of that, around the world. So industry bodies are a great place. Some people listening to this in the UK, for example, might be thinking the Chartered Institute of Personal Development, so CIPD. That is a place that you can go. It's very broad. And you might find, events or online sessions or webinars. The e-learning network is a great place because it's a not-for-profit industry body that tries to just bring new ideas and information to people. It's definitely not just about e-learning. They even run the webinars on the award submissions. So award winners talk about their submissions and what they've done. So that's a great place. But I'd say, we're really lucky, certainly in this country, and I'm quite UK-centric, Amit, I'll be honest. But I mean, I know the model is the same everywhere. There are some we've got an amazing sort of supplier/partner network out there. This is an example of that. So I've learned at least as much from the different suppliers and providers and experts in various technologies and design approaches, the commercial organizations out there like Upside Learning that are prepared to share insight, expertise, experience. This is already sounding like maybe you paid me to say this, Amit. I should point out I was not paid to take part in this podcast. But genuinely, jokes aside, things like this. So talk to people, try a few things out. You'll find the right one for you. I guess that's what I do. There's the Learning Performance Institute in the UK. That's another great example. The LPI. Edmund Monk and his team spend their whole working days basically trying to further knowledge, provide insight. They've got a really great structured approach to skills and capabilities for the learning professional, which is really exciting. So, that's just a few.
Yeah. No, fantastic list. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. While, some of these networks that you mentioned are very UK focused, the structure is pretty much the same worldwide. And I know the e-learning network webinars that you mentioned could be really great, where award-winning samples are shared and people talk a little bit about that. I think there's something with DevLearn that happens like that. But good places for people to go and get some inspiration.
Exactly. Wherever you are in the world, there will be award winners wanting to talk about how they won an award.
Yeah.
so go and listen to them because it'll be really interesting. Yeah.
No, fantastic. Thank you for sharing all of this, Phil. I really appreciate your time today.
No problem.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful conversation.
Pleasure. Speak to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.